All right. Hello, everyone. Hopefully, everyone is just joining in. Hopefully, everything is audible. Should be good. All right. Let's begin without further ado. So, hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. Thank you for joining us live. The topic on the screen today is going to be Cleverence versus WMS. Do you need a full WMS or smarter automation? This is one of the most common questions we hear from operations leaders right now. So let's spend the next 45 minutes or so working through it together. Before we dive in, a quick word about myself, who's talking today. Let's go to the next slide. And we'll get straight into the actual content. So for those of you that haven't met me yet, my name is Stan. I'm the partner and client solutions executive at Cleverence, and I spent the last 10 plus years working hands-on with warehouse and inventory automation across wholesale distribution, dealerships, and automotive, manufacturing, and e-commerce retail. What that means in practice is that I've sat inside a lot of warehouses, watched a lot of teams trying to make outdated processes work, and helped a lot of operations leaders figure out the right next step for their business. So today's session comes from that lens, not theory, but what actually works. Here's what we'll cover together over the next 45 minutes, as I mentioned. So here's our plan for today. We're going to start by looking at why warehouse operations become harder to control over time. Then we'll get into what a full WMS is actually designed to solve. And just as importantly, where a WMS can become too heavy for the business that's buying it. After that, we'll talk about what smarter, more focused automation looks like, how to choose the right path for your situation, and how to prepare your operation for scalable, connected execution. We'll close with a real customer case, as always, and a free PDF guide for everyone who is here live. So let's start by reframing the conversation entirely, because most companies are asking the wrong questions. So, most of the companies, when they hit a wall in their warehouse operations, the conversation in the boardroom becomes, do we need a WMS? And that question, in my experience, is the wrong place to start because it skips four things that need to come first. What problem are we actually trying to solve? How complex are our warehouse operations, really? What systems do we already have in place, and what are they doing for us today? And how fast do we need to see results from whatever we choose? If you answer those four questions honestly, the right technology becomes pretty obvious. And sometimes the answer is a full WMS, but very often it isn't. Very often the answer is something faster, lighter, and more focused. And that's what we're going to spend most of today exploring. To understand why these questions matter, let's start with what's actually going wrong in most of the warehouses today. When I walk into a warehouse that's struggling, it's almost always comes back to the same five patterns: manual data entry, picking lists, put away sheets, transfer notes that someone has to walk back to a desk and key in, delayed ERP updates, sometimes by hours, sometimes by full day, stock movements that happen without anyone tracking them in real time. And the result of all that is very low visibility across the operation, especially for management. None of these are dramatic problems on their own, though. That's the trap. They look small, but they compound. And eventually, they break the trust between what the ERP says you have and what's actually on the shelf. And the cost of these small problems, let's call them like that, is actually much bigger than most leaders realize. So the phrase I use for this is almost working. The processes are mostly there. Orders go out, deliveries come in, stock is somewhere on the floor, but manual operations create a tax that most businesses never measure properly. Inventory mismatches between system and reality. Picking and shipping errors that get caught at the customer, not before. Slow receiving that backs up the entire day. Rework. People fixing things that shouldn't have needed fixing. And poor management visibility, which means leaders are making decisions based on stale data. Each of these has a real dollar cost. And in my experience, when companies actually sit down and add it up, labor hours lost to rework, write-offs from inventory discrepancies, missed shipping cutoffs, the number becomes much bigger than they expected. And most of these companies already have an ERP system. So why isn't that solving the problems? Let's take a look at that. This is one of the most important slides, I would say, in today's session. So let me slow it down here a little bit. The ERP manages your business. It holds the orders, the customers, the suppliers, the financial picture. It needs accurate data and it needs real-time visibility. That's what makes it valuable. But the warehouse is a different world. The warehouse executes the reality. It needs fast workflows. It needs simple mobile tools that work in the hand of someone moving a pallet. The two worlds speak different languages, right? And the gap between them is where almost every operational problem lives. The inventory mismatches, the delayed updates, the picking errors we just talked about. What's missing in most companies is the bridge. Something that captures what's actually happening on the warehouse floor, preferably in real time, and it feeds back all the data into the ERP cleanly. That bridge is what we mean when we talk about warehouse automation, not a replacement for the ERP, because a lot of people get that confused. It's an extension of it on the actual floor. Now, some businesses look at that gap and say, we need a full WMS. So let's look at what a full WMS is actually designed to do. Let me give a fair description of what full WMS is designed for, because I don't want anyone leaving today thinking dismissing WMS as a category. A full WMS manages complex warehouse execution. We're talking about multi-warehouse optimization, moving stock intelligently across multiple sites, advanced replenishment logic that triggers automatically based on demand patterns, labor control, actually managing the productivity of warehouse staff at task level, wave picking, where the system batches orders for efficiency, directed put away, where the system tells the operator exactly which slot to use, and full location management with rules around zones, slot velocity, ABC analysis. This is real, serious functionality. When a business genuinely needs it, WMS earns its place. So when does a business genuinely actually need it? Let's look at where a full WMS actually makes sense. There are 5 conditions where this would be a right call. First, when SKU count and order complexity are high. We're talking tens of thousands of SKUs, hundreds of or thousands of orders per day. Second, when you've got multiple warehouses or multiple zones inside one site that need coordinated optimization. Third, when you need advanced picking strategies, wave picking, batch picking, cluster picking to hit throughput targets. Fourth, when you're operating under strict fulfillment SLAs, same day or next day commitments that don't tolerate any errors. And lastly, the fifth, very important, when you have dedicated implementation resources, a project team, an IT function, change management, support. If all 5 of those describe your business, a full WMS is probably the right direction. The honest reality is that most mid-sized businesses don't have all 5, and that's where the conversation shifts, changes quite drastically. Because when 1 or 2 of those conditions aren't there, a WMS can become a much heavier choice than initially expected. Here's where I want to be very direct with everyone here. When companies buy a WMS, here's what they expect to get: better accuracy, faster picking, full traceability, real-time KPIs on a dashboard. All real benefits, all achievable eventually. But there's the actual burden on the other side of the slide. Long implementation cycles, often 12 to 18 months, sometimes even longer. High configuration effort. Every workflow has to be modeled, tested, completely revamped. Process redesign pressure, because the WMS expects your operation to fit its logic, not the other way around. Heavy user training. every operator needs to be retrained on a new, most of the time, from my experience, complicated system. It's not a simple UI where it's very straightforward as to what the operator needs to do on the next step. And also integration complexity. So connecting that WMS back to the ERP, to your e-commerce platform, to your shipping systems, accounting systems, it becomes a mess. So none of this is a reason not to do it, but it is a reason to be honest about what you're signing up for and whether your operation is actually ready for it. Because what happens when the software is more sophisticated than the operation is actually ready for? This is the slide that I wish someone had shown me 10 years ago. When software gets ahead of the operations underneath it, 5 things happen. And I watched this play out in a couple of real companies. Not the best scenarios, but let's talk about some of these 5 points. So teams resist adoption because the system feels heavier than the job they're trying to do. Data quality stays weak because the people entering the data still don't understand why it matters. Management loses momentum because the project drags on past the point where leadership originally committed. Processes remain unclear because nobody actually fixed them before they got automated. And ROI takes much longer than the business case promised. The line at the bottom of the slide is the one I want you to remember. Technology cannot compensate for unclear processes. It often exposes them faster. This is the single most expensive mistake I see companies make in warehouse digitalization. They buy the biggest, most sophisticated system on the market, and then they discover that the system is now showing them in real time exactly how unclear their processes were. So, if a full WMS is too heavy for where you are today, what's the alternative? That's where the rest of today's session goes. And let's take a look at that. So here's the alternative I want to put in front of you. Instead of jumping from manual operations straight to a full warehouse management system, that's, as we talked about, way too overcomplicated than what your actual operations are. So instead of going to that, there's a much better stage path. Manual to mobile, connected, then optimized. So each step adds capability without forcing you to swallow the entire transformation at once. What does that path actually look like in practice? So barcode and RFID workflows replacing handwritten lists, real-time updates flowing back into your ERP, process standardization, the same steps done the same way every time, mobile data capture at the point of action, and lastly, guided warehouse tasks where the device walks the operator through what to do next. The principle is simple. Start with what creates value fastest. You don't have to build the perfect end state on day one. You build the next step, you measure, and then you scale. So let's get more concrete. What does smarter automation actually consist of? Let's take a look at that. When I say smarter automation, I mean 5 things working together, and let's go through them. People, so the operators on the actual floor, who are actually doing the physical work. Mobile devices, phones, tablets, rugged handhelds, those scanners. Barcode and RFID as the identification level, could be either or, could be a combination. Standardized warehouse processes, because automation only works on a process that's been thought through. And the ERP and business systems behind everything holding the actual source of truth. What makes it smart is the connection between these 5 elements. Any one of them on its own is just a tool. Connected all together, you get an operation that runs itself, captures its own data, and feeds the business in real time. To make the choice really clear, let's put WMS and smarter automation side by side. What does that look like? So this is the slide that I think most operations leaders need on the wall in their office. 5 questions, 2 columns. On scope, a full WMS is built for broad warehouse control. Smart automation is built for focused process execution. Receiving, put away, picking, counting, the workflows that actually create friction. On speed, a WMS is a longer rollout, typically measured in many months or years. Smart automation deploys faster, weeks to a couple of months in most cases. On complexity, WMS is high, smart automation moderate. On the ERP role, in a WMS implementation, the WMS often becomes the new center of gravity, and the ERP integrates around it, which is not the right way to do it. In smarter automation, the ERP stays central, stays that source of truth, and the automation layer feeds it. And on best fit, a full WMS is the right call for complex warehouses with all the conditions we talked about earlier. But smart automation is the right call when the ERP is already running the business, and what you need is faster, cleaner execution on the actual floor. Neither column is wrong. The question is which column describes your business today. So if smart automation fits your situation, let's walk through what the journey actually looks like. Let's take a look at that. Here's the 5-step journey in plain words. Step 1, digitize the key transactions. Get the most used documents off paper. Step 2, add barcode or RFID control. So identification stops depending on human eye and human memory. So get the barcoding set up, RFID tags, whichever route you go with. Step 3, connect those mobile workflows to the ERP system. So what happens on the floor actually updates the system instantly. Step number 4, standardize how the warehouse executes. So every operator follows the same logic. And step 5, measure performance and use that data to optimize. Most companies work with land real value somewhere between steps 2 and 3. The farther you go, the more compound the returns become. And the first move in this journey is figuring out where to start. So let's look at where the friction is the highest. When you're deciding where to start, the rule is simple. Start where friction is the highest. I know I'm repeating myself, but that is exactly what you need to start with. The 6 places friction usually lives are these: receiving, put away, picking, stock counting, transfers between locations, and shipping. Walk those 6 processes. Pretty much every business has that. And ask one question for each. How much of this is still manual, paper-based, or dependent on someone remembering the right step, the old timer? Wherever the answer is most to it, that's where you start. You don't have to fix everything at once, because people think, again, have to do everything end to end. That's not true. You just have to fix the next thing. So focus on what's actually bothering you at the moment in your operations and start with that one. Fully dig deep into that one operation, understand how you can improve it, and just like how we talked about, figure out the proper process, even just using using the paper, and then go with automating that one operation and go from there. So where was I? In almost every case, the first technical move, as I mentioned, is replacing manual input with scanning. Just got to pick the right operation, as I mentioned. So the flow on this slide is the simplest. Most powerful change you can make in a warehouse. Item, scan, task confirmation, ERP update. That's it. 4 steps, all automatic from a human point of view. It's pretty straightforward, just to kind of, if we're dumbing it down like that. What does that get you? Let's be honest. Faster confirmation, because scanning in 2 seconds versus a 30-second keystroke, fewer typing errors. You've eliminated the keyboard entirely from this part of the process. Clear item identification, because the barcode does not lie. And accurate movement tracking, so you always know where stock went. And better transaction discipline, because the scan is the trigger. No scan, no transaction, no missing entries. The single change on its own is what tips most operations from almost working into actually working. But scanning alone isn't the whole picture. The device also needs to guide the operator through their work. So once you've got the scanning in place, The next layer is guidance. The device doesn't just capture data, it drives the workflow. It shows the operator the next step. It validates each action before allowing the next one. It enforces the standard process so every team member follows exactly the same logic. What that does for your business? It dramatically reduces training dependency. A new hire becomes productive in days, not weeks. The team works faster on the floor because they're not making decisions. The system is doing that for them. And data get captured at the source, meaning the ERP isn't waiting for someone to type it in later. It's already there. And once the floor is mobile and guided, the next step is connecting it cleanly to the ERP system. This is the layer that ties everything together. Mobile users on the floor scan and confirm actions. The automation platform processes those events and sends them to the ERP. The ERP updates in real time, and reporting becomes accurate because it's reading from current data, not yesterday's data. What does real-time integration actually create in the business? Current inventory balances. The number in the ERP matches the stock on the shelf. Wow. Very rarely I hear that from the clients we work with. Faster document processing because nothing waits for end of the day entry. Better order visibility for customer service, sales, and management. Fewer reconciliation tasks. There's nothing to reconcile when the data was correct in the first place. And one source of operational truth across the whole company. And at that point, you stop just controlling the warehouse. You start optimizing it. And let's take a look at that. Here's what the data actually looks like once you've connected execution to ERP. These are typical results we see across Cleverence customer implementations, not best case, not laboratory numbers, but what real operations achieve after the journey we've just described. Productivity goes up by around 34%, same headcount, more throughput. Accuracy lands at 99.5%, meaning errors become the exception, not the daily reality. Cycle times drop by around 42% because guided workflows and scanning compress every step of the process. Stock reliability improves by about 28% because the ERP balance and the floor balance finally match. And resource planning becomes genuinely smart because management is now looking at real data instead of estimates. The reason I want to flag these numbers, they don't come from buying a bigger system. They come from connecting the system you already have to the floor where the work is actually happening. But getting to these numbers requires avoiding a few classic mistakes. And let's talk about those. There's 5 of them that I've kind of outlined for myself that I see again and again, and 5 things that prevent them. So let's break this down. Mistake number 1, starting with the software, not the processes, just like how I said a couple of minutes ago. Prevention, begin with the operational problem. Pick a real bottleneck and aim the technology at it. Mistake number 2, automating broken workflows. How do we prevent it? Standardize before you digitize. If a process doesn't work on paper, automating it just makes the same process fail faster. Mistake number 3, ignoring ERP integration. I've seen this one a lot of times. How do we prevent that? You gotta plan connectivity from day one. You gotta source the vendors that actually have integrations ready. That's very important. The mobile workflows are only as good as the ERP they feed. Mistake number 4, underestimating user adoption. You gotta involve users early and often, preferably the actual operators, at least one of them, or warehouse manager, people who are actually going to be using like in this case, the mobile scanning devices, the system, the people that are actually going to be using it on a daily basis. You got to get them involved. So got to get them involved because otherwise it's going to be much harder for them to adopt. Mistake number 5, measuring too late. You got to define the KPIs before going live. No, not after. If you can't measure the before state, you can't prove the after state. Also, Very important one, because again, it comes back to understanding your operation, understanding what you need to fix first, and understanding how that operation is going to look like in the best case scenario where everything is handled properly the way it's supposed to. And only after that, take all that information, go, and that's when you can start looking for a vendor for your automation. So for these 5 mistakes, if you avoid them, the project starts looking a lot like best practice. The positive version of what we just talked about, essentially. 5 things that good automation projects do consistently. So let's dig into these ones. Number 1, start with high impact workflows. The ones that, if you fix them, the whole operation feels different the next day. Number 2, keep users involved early. Once again, bring the warehouse team into the design conversation, not just the training session. You got to get them all in there in the group chat to discuss everything. Number 3, standardize the process logic before you build the workflow. And number 4, integrate with your core business systems from day one, not as a phase 2 project. As I just said, I've seen this multiple times. It's much better to get everything set up properly from day one. It doesn't need to be realistically, all in one phase. It could be broken up, but once again, you gotta highlight as to what's the biggest issue right now, and going forward, can this system connect to my ERP system? Oh yeah, it can. Okay, good. Then we can, start doing the work, start doing the project. It's fine to do it in multiple phases. And lastly, number 5, you got to track the KPIs from day one, so you know what's actually changing. So we kind of already talked about this, but kind of rehashed a couple of things. Now, to the decision itself, how do you actually choose between a full WMS and smarter automation for your business specifically? Let's take a look at that. If you take one slide home, another one from today's session, this might be another one, very important one. 5 typical situations with a clear recommendation for each. So if you've got an ERP in place, but the warehouse is still running on paper, go with smart automation. You don't need to replace anything. You need to connect what you have to the floor. If your processes are clear but slow, smart automation again. The bottleneck isn't the design, it's the execution. Mobile workflows and scanning will move the needle. If you've got complex multi-zone fulfillment with serious throughput targets, that's where a full WMS makes sense. If you need advanced labor management or wave picking logic, again, full WMS territory. And if you need a faster ROI and lower disruption, in this case, smart automation wins. You can always layer a WMS on top later if the business generally grows into needing one. But you should never buy complexity you don't have to use yet. So hopefully you take that away from today's session. Whichever path you choose, the metrics that prove it worked are the same. Let's look at what to measure. How can we actually measure if the system that we've implemented actually works and does things better for us? So whichever direction you go, these are the 6 numbers leadership should be watching. Number 1, inventory accuracy, the gap between the system and reality. Picking accuracy, the rate of correct orders out the door. Receiving cycle time, how long it takes from truck arrival to stock available. Order processing speed, how fast you can turn an order into a shipment. Labor productivity, output per operator per shift, also very important. And ERP data reliability, also very important. How often the data on the screen matches the data on the floor. If those 6 numbers move in the right direction, the project is working. If they don't, something needs to change. It really is that simple. All 6 of those KPIs, KPI points to the same end state. A warehouse that's connected, not overcomplicated. The future warehouse. Let's talk about that. This is true whether you go the WMS route or the smarter automation route. Has 5 characteristics. It's mobile first. It's barcode and RFID enabled. It's data driven, meaning decisions are made on numbers rather than instincts. It's flexible and scalable, so it can grow with the business. And it's ERP connected, of course. The line on the slide says it best. The goal is not the biggest system. The goal is the most connected and practical operating model. The companies that win in the next 10 years won't be the ones with the most expensive software. They'll be the ones with the cleanest connection between the actual floor and the system of record, whichever they have. So what does the actual transformation path looks like end to end? We have 5 steps here. One, understand your process gaps. I will keep on saying that multiple times, but it is very important. Just understand where you're lacking, what you need to fix like right now. Where's the friction? Where are the errors? Where's the data breaking down? All of that. Number 2, digitize the key workflows. So again, get the highest friction processes off the paper. Number 3, connect that warehouse execution to your ERP so the system of record stays accurate in real time. Number 4, measure the business impact using the KPIs we just covered. And number 5, scale automation step by step, expanding from the first workflow into the rest of the operation. This is the journey. It's not a leap, it's a sequence. It's very straightforward when you have everything cleared within your own operation, when you understand what needs to be done. To execute that journey, you need the right platform underneath it. So let's talk about what that platform should look like. The right platform, whatever brand it carries, combines 4 things: execution, validation, integration, and scalability. In practice, that means 6 things you should look for. Mobile workflows built for real warehouse operations, not adapted from desktop software. Embedded business logic, so the platform enforces the rules rather than relying on the operator to remember them. Online and offline support, preferably, because warehouses aren't always perfectly connected. Sure, we all know that. Fast integration with enterprise systems, especially ERP. That's probably the most important one. Flexibility across multiple use cases. So once again, receiving, picking, inventory, transfers all on one platform. And control, visibility, and growth potential built in from day one. So those are the criteria, and that's a useful checklist regardless of which vendor you end up choosing. With that said, let me show you how this comes together in the Cleverence platform. This is what the final system actually looks like in operation, in real time, in real world. This is the picture I want you to hold in your mind when we talk about smarter automation. On the left, we've covered this slide a couple of times, but it's just covers everything very, very proper, very visual. On the left, the warehouse operator. He's just scanning items, working from a mobile device, no paperwork inside. The mobile workplace is convenient. On-site verification happens in real time. Very straightforward. And again, there's guidance. There's so many other things. He doesn't need to think. The system thinks for him. The guy is happy. That's it. On the right, we have the manager supervising remotely from a desk. The data is exchanging in real time between the two sides. And the ERP document status is accurate always because it's not depending on anyone typing it in at the end of the day. That's the end state. The operator does the work, the system records the truth, and the manager sees what's happening without having to walk the floor. Seems pretty good, right? Everyone is happy. So the business case for this end state shows up clearly on the bottom line. So let's take a look at that. So this slide is one of the clearest pictures of the business case, and I want to be very precise about what it's showing because it's not what people sometimes assume on first glance. The table compares the total monthly operational cost of running inventory tracking 5 different ways. We have manual checking, $10,000 a month when you factor in the labor, the errors, the rework, the write-offs, all of that combined. Excel and Google Sheets, it is slightly better, $8,000 a month because you've at least got a system, but you're still depending on manual data entry. A USB barcode scanner, $4,000 a month. Much better identification, but still tethered to a desk, right? A basic barcode app, $2,500 a month. And finally, Cleverence software, around $1,000 a month for the same operation, fully mobile and fully connected. Now, read carefully. This is not a discount on the software price. This is the total operational cost of running the inventory function, including the labor time, error correction, write-offs, and rework, all of those combined. Companies reduce their total monthly operating costs by around 90%, so saving roughly $9,000 a month, $108,000 a year. The savings come from labor that's freed up, errors that no longer happen, and rework that disappears, not from a cheaper software license. So that distinction matters. The software is a small line. The savings actually come from the operation around it. Now, the platform that delivers those savings. Let me walk you through the Cleverence product portfolio. Like the slide. It's good. Cleverence is built as a set of product lines, all on the same underlying platform, each tuned for a different operational context. Cleverence Inventory for traditional warehouse and inventory management. Store Ops for retail environments where stock and shelf operations matter. Delivery Ops for businesses where the last mile and dispatch piece is critical. Factory Ops for manufacturing operations where receiving, production, tracking, and finished goods movement needs to be controlled. And finally, Assets for tracking equipment, tools, and high value items beyond just stock. The image on the right shows what an operator actually sees on the device. Goods arrival, pick and ship, stock take and moves between locations. Just simple operations. As you can see, the UI, it's exactly what it is. It's very straightforward. So real warehouse tasks designed for a screen that the operator can use one-handed while walking. Very straightforward. And underneath all 5 product lines is the same set of platform capabilities, because everything is built on the Cleverence platform. The 4 pillars underneath everything: mobile and connected devices, so smartphones, tablets, rugged handhelds. So on-the-go data entry is the default, not the exception. Barcode and RFID technology, we got that covered as well. So speeding up the operations we talked about. Inventory counts, asset tracking, picking, anywhere you need quick and reliable identification. And another important one, real-time data integration with your existing ERP. Pointer here, real-time. Real-time two-way exchange, not like batch updates that we talked about. So the data is flowing live. So the platform is not a separate database. It's an extension, just like we talked about, of what you already have. And finally, customizable workflows, meaning the platform adapts to your processes rather than forcing you to adapt to it. So those 4 pillars together are what makes the platform a fit for businesses that need real automation, but don't need or want the complexity of a full WMS implementation. So how does an actual implementation start? Let me walk you through that path. The path it's pretty straightforward, but we broke it down into 5 clean stages. 1, pre-sale brief. You pick a date that works. You share your project details, your goals, the situation you're trying to solve. Everything like we talked about. Getting everything figured out. What do we need to fix first? Okay, so number 2, join the chat. You're connected directly with a dedicated project manager who aligns expectations and strategy before anything else happens. We gotta get everything sorted out. 3, get like a demo. If you're starting within the next 2 weeks, you get a hands-on demo, so you see the platform in action. And number 4 is a commercial offer. So personalized proposal built around your project scope and your timeline. And lastly, number 5, the actual project implementation, where the real work begins. The whole process, as you can see, is designed to be lightweight and predictable. It's very straightforward. It's not a 6-month procurement exercise. It's a conversation that turns into a real project with a proper success story after go live. And here's one example of what that journey actually looks like for real business. APMG. Talked about them multiple times, but it's a really great case that is based in Dubai. They are a spare parts e-commerce business serving the UAE market. And I want to give you the honest story of what we did there, because the narrative matters more than the headlines. APMG had a custom ERP that was working well for them. It handled their orders, their customers, their financial picture, all the things a good ERP should handle. But it had a real gap. The ERP knew what stock they had, but it didn't know where the stock actually was. There was no location level visibility. There was no address storage logic inside the system. So when an order came in, the warehouse team had to physically search for the items. And with 100,000 SKUs across the operation, you can imagine that that search was pretty slow, as well as error prone. And of course, it got worse as the catalog grew, right? So that's the gap that we filled. We didn't replace the ERP. We added an address storage layer on top of it. Every storage location got a barcode. Every item got tied to its location. The operators worked from mobile devices that knew exactly where to go for any item. So picking, put away, transfers, all guided by the device, all updating in real time, all feeding right back into the ERP system. The results were significant. Inventory turnover went up by a factor of 4, again, without increasing the headcount. The operation expanded into a much larger storage footprint without proportionally adding staff, once again. And staff errors dropped by around 99%. That's the main thing here. The team is now running on over 17 mobile devices, I believe, across their warehouse. That's the current production footprint. The reason this case matters for today's conversation, APMG didn't need a WMS. They had a good ERP. What they needed was the missing layer between the ERP and the actual floor. That's the gap smarter automation fills. That's the case. And I promised you a take-home resource. Let's get to it. I just have a couple slides to your left. All right, yeah. So everyone who joined today gets a PDF guide. It's essentially everything we talked about, just understanding how you can increase your ROI, how you can get this layer automation layer set up. It builds on a lot what we covered today. How to sequence the journey, how to measure at each stage, and how to know that you're on the right track. So you'll get that after the session. And with that, that's about it. That's the contact card. So that brings us to the end of today's session, which means it's time for, if there's any kind of questions, shoot them in the chat. I am here. So before we open the floor, here's how to reach me directly. There's the phone number, there's Telegram, there's WhatsApp, there's my phone number, email, everything is there. You can even scan the QR code and get right to me. So whatever stage you're at, whether you've already started this journey, whether you're still evaluating, or whether you're just exploring what the right next step looks like, I'm happy to have that conversation. Now, that's about it. Once again, reach out to us. Let's sit down, have a conversation. We're not trying to right away, as I said a bit earlier, try to straight up sell you something. We want to make sure that we're the right fit for you, and if not, then we'll guide you into the right direction. So we want to make sure that the system that you pick will actually benefit you rather than burden you with additional things, just like everything that we talked about. So you don't want to overcomplicate things. You just want to make sure just one of the people that I talked to recently said very well. You want to have a system you want to have an operation that you don't even notice. So that's when everything's working pretty well. And most of the time, based on my experience, that only works when things are simple. That's it. So on that note, I will end today's webinar. Again, if there's any questions, please shoot them in the chat. I'll be here for a couple of minutes. Besides that, thank you very much for everyone who joined today. It's been my pleasure, as always. That's it. My name is Stan. Once again, thank you guys, and have a great time of the day. Cheers. Bye.